Hey, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Greg and Joe Turbo Show. As always, I am your host, Joe, joined by my gregarious co-host, Greg. Ooh, new
Wow,
word today, Greg.
very creative. I like that.
I was searching the internet before we started today to find another word, so I found one. Uh, Today we are super, super lucky. I know I say that all the time. I mean it this time.
Yes.
We're super lucky to be joined by, again, a really sort of long-time turbo, a guy that's worn many hats, done many things, Mr. Anson McCook. Hey, Anson.
Woohoo! Happy
Yeah,
to
where's
be
the
on,
fanfare?
guys.
Yeah. We're happy to have you. I know you are doing tons of different things. Uh, you might be, again, the person who has more YouTube views than Greg and I. So I know you do a lot of work with a lot of the video content for Turbo and IBM. So hopefully we can steal some of your audience. Just throw that out there. But no, Anson, again, thanks for joining. Maybe we can just start for those who don't know who you are. Maybe you can kind of give us a little intro into Anson himself.
For sure. I'm Anson McCook, and I'm worldwide Turbonomic sales leader, technical sales leader within IBM, and spent the last 11 years just absorbing as much turbo knowledge as I can. That's been starting out early on as a partner sales BDR, then transitioning over into technical sales, being an SE for many of those years, eventually running teams in our Boston office, then moving to London to build out the sales engineering team over there, and then migrated back to the US, and I'm now on the West Coast, covering now our worldwide customers and helping enable a lot of our pre-sales teams to help customers realize the wonderful value that Turbo brings.
Well said.
Yeah, that's impressive, and it's interesting. I always love to hear it because I also started out as a BDR at Turbo. It's just awesome to hear like sort of the progression of things. Um, and so I think
Yeah.
again like probably no one better suited to talk about Turbo than you. Having again started from the very beginning and sort of moving through a lot of different areas in the company. So uh,
Legend.
that's a legend indeed. Um, well, cool. Well, so I mean, I think for the past few weeks, right, we've had a chance to chat with a lot of folks at Turbo, who are working on specific things with the product and talking to specific aspects of what we do. So we thought it'd be great to have you on because I know you've been pretty involved in a lot of the work behind the scenes, especially with IBM and sort of getting IBM proper to start leveraging Turbo. So I figured maybe we could chat about maybe some of that process and some of the successes you guys have found, and I think it's just overall an interesting story.
Yeah, for sure. Prior to the acquisition, we were drinking our own Kool-Aid, using Turbonomic, or I should say, what did Shmuel used to say? Drinking our own champagne and caviar, using Turbonomic to manage a lot of our internal data center resources as well as our public cloud resources. So we were a company of 500 to 700 at that point, managing our lab, and then once the acquisition happened, that opened the floodgates for lots of different IBM business units to want to start leveraging Turbonomic internally. We've got built up some great users over the years. Just like with any maybe customer engagement, like there were some skeptics over whether Turbonomic could provide value into these large Kubernetes environments that we manage, or public cloud environments, or traditional on-prem VMware, and took a few calls, back and forth, technical review sessions to get them on board, and then like with everyone, I think when they look at Turbo, a light bulb goes off, and they're like, "Wow, I can use this. This will make my life easier." So we got, I think, two big IBM environments that come to mind where we've had some success. Has been the Office of the CIO. Been a fantastic implementation, mainly managing a lot of the Kubernetes environments, OpenShift environments that they've got running. And then the other one is the IBM TechZone environment, which is this very large, oh gosh, how would I describe it? I think of it, I guess I'll describe it as a user. I'm a pre-sales individual. I am about to do a demo, a proof of value, proof of concept, proof of technology with a customer. I need to get my hands dirty playing with some piece of IBM software or hardware. Let me go and request access to something, or let me spin something up for a temporary amount of time. It could be a couple of hours, could be a couple weeks, a couple months, and that way I can either gain knowledge on the solution so I can present it to the customer, or I can use this technology and let my customer play with it. And so that's what this TechZone is. It's this extremely volatile environment. Things are getting built and destroyed every hour, every minute, every day. And it's very large, and it was becoming a challenge and a nightmare for those administrators to run. And these guys they've got like automation out the wazoo. It's a pretty incredible portal that you go into. I want an OpenShift cluster. I want a Turbonomic instance. I want an Instant instance. Poof, it all appears. But with all this fantastic automation provisioning, it was becoming challenging to figure out what stuff goes where. When I get tickets opened all the time with performance issues, how am I managing my capacity? So we stuck Turbo in there, and it's been a fantastic solution, solving some of TechZone's challenges. And then, just because of the nature of TechZone, which is this whole pre-sales like space for us to live in, they have this really cool, this is a little plug for them, they've got this really cool concept called a model home, where they like to showcase how they are this model home for IBM. You can walk inside this home and the IBM development, and you can walk into each room and see how TechZone is using each one of these IBM technologies to manage TechZone. So in there, and I can show you some visuals, but in the model home, you walk in, you can check out the Turbonomic room within the model home, and now salespeople can actually log into this instance and use it for their demos, and it's great to we have our own demo environment, of course, where we have lots of pending actions. We're not necessarily automating in our demo environment, because if we're automating, we don't have any of these cool actions to show off. But if you go into the TechZone environment, it's a cool environment where everything's automated, or I should say a lot of stuff is automated, not everything. A lot of stuff is automated, and you can show off what the results look like after you automate. So it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, that would be tough to demo if we were doing automation in our internal sales demos, because it would just be green.
Right.
It'd be like,
Yeah.
just like, trust me, if you do it, this is what you'll look like too, right? I mean, yeah,
Yes,
everything's fine.
exactly.
So Anson, let me ask you, because I mean, it sounds like you said, there were some potential roadblocks along the way, right? And we've gotten to this state now, which is excellent. But I assume you put your SE hat on and you had to do some convincing and some hand holding. And sounds like really any other sort of customer engagement. So really, I mean,
Yeah.
it's you're going to have champions, and you're going to have people who have questions. I don't know if you can share this, but were there any specific hesitations that you had to kind of overcome, and how did you do that, I guess?
Yeah, at least in TechZone, I think sometimes educating folks on what's an easy action versus what's a hard action, and what the benefits are of either type of action. So we go through our little checklist that we've got. I mean, everyone's got a challenge, so they're sort of working with us. They're like, if Turbonomic says what it's going to do and it's going to work, then yeah, I want to test it out. But I am maybe hesitant to turning over the controls to this automation platform. Like, I trust automation. I want to automate, but I need to trust it. So we usually go through the visuals in Turbo first. The crawl approach is like, let's plug in Turbo and see what it wants to do and see what the benefits are going to be. And so like we have a large VMware environment that we were optimizing in TechZone, and this visual, Joe, Greg, like there's that optimized view, and Turbo's telling you like, here's what your environment looks like today. This is the same visual you'd get if you logged into vCenter and you looked at the state of your hosts and your VMs. And here's this pretty state on the right that Turbonomic can drive your environment to. Which environment do you want? And that's like the no-brainer answer should be like, well, I want the one on the right. Why isn't it like that to begin with? I don't know, but Turbo's going to drive you there. And these are the specific actions, and in our case, for optimizing something like that, it was just non-disruptive vMotion actions. So, risk really low, benefit high, We were also highlighting some clusters that could be consolidated. TechZone at this point is growing rapidly, so they saw that as like, oh my gosh, there's all this excess capacity we didn't know we had. Great, we can push off some potential purchases of hardware, or we've got other environments. They've got sort of production and what they call test and self-education. We've got test and self-education where people are just requesting stuff nonstop. Let's funnel some of that usage into these clusters and maybe be more willing to share the space. So clicking the button manually, taking some actions. Wow, this works. Awesome. Let's go ahead and automate this. So we have our checklist, and you might have seen this, Joe Gray. We've got like the no-brainer checklist, and you just go down it, and you pick the platforms that Turbo's plugged into. VMware. In this case, we're plugged into VMware, AWS, Azure, and all the OpenShift clusters and Kubernetes clusters that sit on top of those platforms. And we just went through like, what are the number one no-brainers here? vMotions in VMware, pod move actions in all the Kubernetes environments, volume scaling in AWS, resize up actions in VMware where hot add is enabled. So those actions automated. This team was like leaning in hard. It was like, when can we enable these actions? When can we turn them on? So that's I think it's just trust. That's like the biggest thing to overcome, the trust objections. Like I like what I hear, but can you do it for me? And then we work down the list to like the harder stuff. And the hard stuff is really the black and white is like, well, what actions cause disruption? They're valuable actions, but which ones cause disruption and when can I afford to take them? So we work with TechZone to help identify what is considered, what they consider to be prod, what they consider to be test. They have these categories called testing or self-education, or there's one more. Test, self-education. I forget the last one. And they started tagging everything appropriately, and now Turbo says, well, this is prod. We're going to do scale up during the day. We're going to move things around. We're going to make sure performance is great. We don't necessarily know when someone is or isn't using prod, so we just assume that it is always on. It needs to be on, and there's no opportunity to disrupt it. And this is TechZone where something will only live for so long. So something lives for a few hours or something lives for a few weeks. It'll eventually die at some point. For the self-education and testing environment, we have the policy set up so at 1 a.m. every morning, we reclaim resources. We do the VM resizing, which is a disruptive action. You'll notice if you ever go into TechZone and request some resource and you select your categories, testing, self-education, then there's a little subtext that pops up and says, just so you know, your instance, this environment will be under management of Turbonomic, and we take resize actions down at 1 a.m. in the morning to reclaim resources. And don't worry, if you need those resources the next day, as you start to play around with your instance, what happens? You get more resources back. So addressing the demands that we see. When you need more, you get more. When you need less, we take it away.
That's really good communication out of the gate, right? Setting expectations about what you're going to see, the behavior you're going to have, and probably, at least hopefully, cutting off a lot of those tickets saying, hey, what's going on? What is this? Why did this happen? How do I get these resources back?
Yes. Everyone's always. I usually help people reach that answer because usually, if you take we size these VMs down, like what happens if I need them again? And I'm like, what happens if you need them again? We just talked about resizing up. We know. I think over the years we've learned that it's not enough to just go in and show Turbo and how it's going to reclaim resources. Look, we've got all these resize down actions. I don't want to diminish Turbo's value on this action, but a resize down action is pretty simple in that many tools can say, set some arbitrary threshold. If I'm under this level of utilization, please recommend I resize down. We know Turbo's fantastic because it also includes the nuances of understanding if you've got some sort of JVM running inside your VM or database running inside your VM, and it can account for those settings when it sizes down. But it's not enough to just say, look, Turbo gives you resize down actions, it's going to reclaim capacity. It's a lot more powerful if you first lead with the resize up opportunities. Because I think it's easier to convince somebody, to take to give somebody more resources. If you plug in Turbo, you see a whole bunch of actions that say, hey, you're running out of CPU, you're running out of memory, and you can pose this question to maybe the operations team and say, well, if you went to an end user and asked them if you could give them more CPU and more memory, what do you think an end user would say? I don't think they'd complain. I think they'd be like, yeah, sure, let's do it. If you get them comfortable with that concept, giving more resources, it makes the other conversation a lot easier when you go back to them 2 weeks later, a month later, and say, hey, you know those resources I gave you that you needed at the time, it doesn't look like you're using them anymore. Is it cool if we scale this back down? This is what I want to do. And don't worry, you know I'm good for it. I'll give you those resources right back when you need them again.
Hey, I'm good for it. Well, I think it's interesting too, right? I mean, like, there's multiple different platforms under management of Turbo, right, in these environments, and like, and for people listening, right, these are not small. Like, these are giant environments, like the sum of them, right? I mean, I was just looking because I think these are all, by the way, Office of CIO and TechZone are case studies that I think are publicly available.
Yeah.
Our website as well. But I was just kind of looking a little bit before we jumped on today. And for TechZone, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's something like 2,600 virtual machines in the cloud, 14,000 VMs on-prem, and about 180,000 pods spread across 600 different clusters. This is by no means a
Bigger
small.
now.
Yeah, it's bigger now.
Yeah.
It's even bigger now. So, and that's insane. And then, for the CIO, right? I'm looking, and maybe this has changed too, but something like 45,000 actions automated monthly. That's crazy. I mean, that's like, and so, I mean, I think that kind of the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, right? It's like, like you said, like we're drinking our own champagne and we're not picking little things here and there to try to make it sound good. Like we're all in on this, and it seems to be working amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. We've got. Can I share my screen? Are we allowed to
Yeah, of
share
course.
some
Yeah.
visuals? So maybe one. I like showing off the model home, and I get points with the TechZone team if I do this too. So let me
We'll
know if
tag
that's
them all in
coming
the
up.
video.
Yeah. Well, it's such a cool spot. So TechZone is this cool place. They have all these different collections where this is where someone can request access or request a different IBM technology service platform and serve it up, and then they can do whatever they want with it. The model home is one of these collections where they've got all these different platforms that you can come in and request access to or get deployed. So Turbonomic is one of them. We've got this little demo video that helps explain what Turbonomic is doing for TechZone. And then you click the little reserve button here, and poof, you'll get an IBM or partner will get access to the Turbonomic TechZone instance in here. And so here's the front door where we've got our supply chain. We're managing 20,000 virtual machines, 13,000 of which are powered on and running. Tons of pods, 198,000 pods, 300,000 containers running. So we've got this is the thing that's fluctuating all the time. Lots of different Kubernetes clusters and OpenShift clusters getting spun up and destroyed during the day. So just over 500 a day. This number goes up and down dramatically, and then that's on-prem, and in the cloud, we've got about 1,000, 1,500 today running in AWS and Azure. Yeah, it's pretty, and again, on top of that, AKS, EKS, RO, ROSA environments on top of that. And all of this is under management with Turbo. Got a variety of different automation policies set up. We have these cool dashboards in Turbo. And you'll notice not everything is automated. So we have, for the most part, automated almost all non-disruptive actions. If it causes no disruption, there's no excuse to not take it. So we've got all those actions under automation. So like one fun one that we all know is non-disruptive are the volume scale actions in AWS. This is why it would make a boring demo. No actions to show because they're all being automated. So the compelling visuals in the TechZone instance are on the dashboard page. We've got these action summary dashboard set up where we like to highlight all the things Turbo's done past 30 days. So this is the VMware environment, taking anywhere between 4,000 and 1,000 actions a day, moving things around, sizing things up. This is across a variety of different regions across the world in different IBM cloud environments. And then in AWS, looks like we had, maybe new instances were deployed or new usage, lots of new usage spikes in AWS. So we took a bunch of volume scaling actions as well. And again, things that are beyond, human abilities when it comes to tracking all this data, implementing the right action, making sure something breaks, going up and down. So it's cool to come in here and see all the actions that Turbo's taking.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, right? I mean, again, like all of this is happening in one platform, right? Not some amalgamation of different tools kind of jammed together. This is a one-stop shop essentially. And beyond that, right? I mean, even though we're managing so much here, this is still pretty lightweight, right? We have no agents. We don't need agents deployed to help us, even if it's a giant environment like this, right? We're still just leveraging the API. It's
Yep.
still from a from a sort of a size standpoint, this is easy.
Yep.
I mean,
Easy. This is for TechZone. It was great. This is a SaaS instance that they're leveraging, so maintenance of the instance is also minimal. They deployed the little Turbonomic SaaS client, which is this one little VM they've put in their VMware environment to allow us connectivity to all the VMware clusters. I've got all the Kubi Turbos reporting data back to Turbo, and then we're just using the APIs to get to AWS and Azure, collect data. This visual I show here is like the result of all of the cloud actions that we're taking in AWS. Prior to us switching over how we calculated cumulative savings from the AWS bill, we had saved over $1 million starting in around January of this year when we flipped the automation on. So $1 million for the first 7 months there, and then moving forward, it's just been like micro adjustments, making sure that things go up and go down as needed. We size things up when needed. It just so happens that more often than not, people oversize stuff when they deploy it. So we also have, a proportional amount of savings to that investment, which is cool to see.
well, hopefully your bonus is tied to the amount of money you've saved. Saying that would be pretty fantastic.
Yeah. It's definitely could be a full-time job, maybe many people's full-time jobs, just to go through all the different business units within IBM, because it's incredible, how much infrastructure we're all consuming, and software teams building new software, and determining themselves how many resources they think they need, and there's an opportunity there to clean up a lot of stuff. So it's really cool to see the different IBM groups lean into software that's accessible to them, and drink our own champagne. It's fun.
And I mean, and it seems like, obviously we have a pretty solid release schedule, right? We're updating, very frequently, adding new features. But you were just showing the sort of the cumulative savings widget. I know with the most recent release, we're now capturing all of our parking savings as well, which is, I think, huge. I mean, it's not that we weren't giving customers that savings already, but now we're making it a lot easier for them to understand and visualize. And, obviously just the way human nature is if you can see it, it's much more impactful. So it's pretty awesome.
For sure. I've got another. Okay, we just want to throw more things out there. We've got our own tiny. It's nothing like the size of TechZone. We've got our own tiny, modest Turbonomic environment that is controlling our small lab. But it happens to be connected to, and let me see if I can pull it up quickly. It happens to be connected to our new ThoughtSpot implementation. So that's that new SaaS reporting that is available for initially, easily for a lot of our SaaS customers. It's easy to turn on, and eventually we'll go GA for all customers. But it's pretty slick because it allows us to do a lot of maybe on-demand reporting that customers otherwise maybe had to dig into the details of our database and figure out how the schema and know how to write SQL queries in our old embedded reporting solution. But now, leveraging something like ThoughtSpot in our SaaS reporting solution, it's a pretty slick solution for creating reports on the fly using just plain English, which is pretty slick. So here's our small little modest demo lab that we've got in here, where we've got, just 319 VMs, so tiny, a couple of clusters running, and we're connected into the cloud, just small stuff. A lot of this is designed, the stuff we need to make sure is always healthy, and then there's a lot of stuff we need to make sure is purposely broken so that our demo environments have something to look at. So there's an art here.
I appreciate that you guys keep things broken for us, Anson. It's very, very nice. It makes my job a lot easier when I can point out.
Takes years of perfection to break things the right way. So now I've got two reporting buttons here. One takes me to the embedded reporting, our classic reporting solution. It came preloaded with a bunch of dashboards. If you know Grafana and you know our schema, great. Go have fun, play with that. We have a community that publishes reports as well on our GitHub. So lots of support there, lots of cool stuff. We're transitioning over to it's this one. This reporting button, open up again, which is our ThoughtSpot environment, our SaaS reporting solution, where we've also got preloaded dashboards in here. But the cool thing about ThoughtSpot, and I'll try and do a really easy example on the fly, is you can create these, any query, any dashboard name, any report you want in a matter of minutes just by typing what you want instead of having to know how to write SQL. So it's pretty slick. I've been experimenting with my own dashboards, trying to help summarize the value that Turbo's providing when you automate. So I think we've got a lot of great dashboards that focus on convincing someone to automate. In the product, there's a lot of good dashboards that optimize view. I was mentioning earlier, like ugly now, pretty later. We've got the Prove It UI, which is that details button when you want to right size something. Ugly now, pretty later. And this is the money you're going to save. So once customers start executing those actions, then it sort of flips. Now it's like, you don't need to convince me to take actions, but you do need to show me what value I've been receiving from taking those actions. What time have you saved me? What performance issues have you helped me avoid or eliminate? What troubleshooting have you helped me avoid? How much money have you saved me? How much more efficient am I? So this is some, me messing around in ThoughtSpot, where I'm trying to quickly summarize all the different types of actions that we've been automating over time in our lab. We're automating things in the cloud. We're automating things on-prem. So like, show me all the on-prem vMotions that we've been taking. Some days we don't do anything. Some days we do a lot of stuff. We right size. So let's show the right size actions. And I'm pretty sure that September 2nd was a Saturday. And 83 actions, what were we doing that day? Well, this was one of the first days where we started implementing the resize down logic in our lab. So there was a huge chunk of right size actions that got executed at between 11 p.m. and 2 in the morning East Coast time. So boom, got a whole chunk of resources back. Pretty cool to see. And anyways, we're doing lots of cool stuff in here. What risks have I avoided? I've got vCPU congestion. About 6% of the actions I take are to resolve that. Most of the time it's around improving efficiencies, consolidating my cluster, reclaiming memory. So just giving me an idea of like where all the actions go, what they're doing for me. We've got this concept of how much labor it's saving us managing the environment. So I can decide. These are arbitrary values that we've plugged in here, but a customer could plug in whatever they want. If I take a vMotion to prevent a problem, how much time would it have taken me to decide ahead of time to preventatively do something? Or how much time did that potentially save me in troubleshooting some issue after the fact? So we've got some values here where we say, for every vMotion you take, Turbonomic saves me 15 minutes of time. So that's what this summary is here. In the cloud and on premise, how much labor has been saved from an hour standpoint? So 400 hours.
And that might be something, right? I mean, it's definitely harder to quantify, but it's equally as valuable, right? I mean, saving money is great, and I know that we talk about that a lot, and we sort of lead with that quite a bit. Obviously with performance as well, of course. I don't want Oved to get mad at me. Performance first, and cost savings, But I mean, really, like the amount of sort of manual effort and man hours that we're able to, save people is huge, because that then turns into some other productive activity that leads to something else for the company, for, you know what I mean? And so it kind of has this sort of snowball effect where, again, hard to quantify, but extremely, extremely valuable and extremely important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We know it's valuable. We know it's hard to quantify. Here's the data. You can wrap around whatever, value metric you want. We took these many actions. We took them for these reasons. If you can try and put some number on it for how much time it saved you. Here it is. We're not trying to say like these are the hard coded values. You can modify them, but we know everyone should identify with, if I've automated something, it's definitely taken something off my plate, some manual effort off my plate. Okay. This is experimenting with some visuals here, but on that September 2nd, when we did resize a bunch of resources, I'm below zero here. This is showing how many gigs of RAM were reclaimed within the environment. So about 1.3 terabytes of RAM were reclaimed. And again, I could apply some soft cost to that. These are virtual resources sitting on top of physical. So, and 185 vCPUs were reclaimed. So some amount of capacity has now come back into my cluster that I can grow into, or I could decide, gosh, I've got some older hardware here. I can just start to decommission this hardware. Don't need to spend any more money on power and cooling, on software licensing. Let's kill it. And you can see over time throughout the day, it's a little hard to see because there's so much reclamation. People deploy new things throughout the week, and they're generally over provisioned. Then on Saturdays and Sundays, resources are reclaimed, and then throughout the week again, we issue out resources as needed. So like this week, 7. Let's look at all the CPU resize up. Actually, CPU resize, yeah. 9 vCPUs up, 7 vCPUs up, taking place. Last Saturday or Sunday, took away 14. So you can see how we give away and then reclaim, give away and reclaim throughout the week. Pretty cool to see. So it's a fun. This is a fun platform to experiment with. Now, if I could try this on the spot, but we could do a little demo
I do just
here.
want to say, while you're about to do this, once an SC, always an SE. Somehow you're giving us a demo. It was going to happen.
Yeah. It's in my nature. It all goes back to sharing my screen and giving a demo. So let's try this. Let's see if this works. So let's say we want to make like an action dashboard, maybe similar to something I want to do. We've got 2 different sort of tables you can query. You could say, I want to write some sort of report on actions that are in my environment. Or I want to do some sort of report or dashboard that are related to metrics and utilization over time. It looks like we've got a separate worksheet for cloud entities in particular. So let's do actions as a quick example. And I could say, show me all the succeeded actions that have taken place, and I'll just do unique count based on the ID of the action. So I think that let's just do that and see what happens. That'll be just some query should come back with, I think, one little box. 645 things have happened. Okay, well, show me that based on when they took place, date, time, and let's do daily. Now I'm saying every day. Show me the actions that have succeeded every day. Okay, that'll come back. And you can see all the different columns in my table over here on the left. Oh, look at it. The second it notices that I have a set of criteria, a metric, and a time frame, it immediately just guesses like, oh, you have enough to plot data now. So it's already decided that I'm going to plot some sort of KPI metric over time. And you can change the visual here. Let's go back to the table, just sort of stealing my thunder here. Let's go back to the table, and it'll show that data over time. There we go. So now over time, let's sort by date time. There we go. All the actions that have succeeded over time. And on the columns here, I can sort of look and peek as to what other maybe information I'd want to filter on or sort by. So I could do like, well, what types of actions were these? Similar to what I was showing before. Target type. I think that's not target as in like what we target in Turbo. It's more like the thing that we took an action on. Was it a VM? Was it a container? What was it, a volume? Okay, there we go. Now I took one container pod action on September 1st. Okay, cool. Now we're getting somewhere. And then I could ask it for the target name. That's so yeah, that might let's plot, or the risk. The risk is always fun to look at. Is risk one? Risk or reason, description,
I'll tell you,
date.
I haven't actually seen this yet, so this is pretty neat. I mean, it kind of like you said, like this is certainly a lot easier to mess around with than embedded reporting.
Much easier.
Yeah, but also kind of cool, right? Like kind of like Turbo in our policies, right? We just kind of provide the tools and then let the customer essentially create what makes sense for them. And this seems like very much in that vein, right? Like here's the
Yeah,
tools, be as creative as possible as you want to be, right? And as specific to whatever the business need is here as you need to be. And it's,
yeah,
looks like it's pretty straightforward. So it's pretty
yeah.
awesome.
You know, I think people recognize like Turbo's got a lot of great data in our main GUI. It was then a matter of like, I love Turbo's data, but I want to see it like this. This is how we report internally in our business, and it was then becoming a challenge for trying to. We could only make so many default dashboards and panels within our GUI, so let's ship this out to another platform that we know allows us to visualize this data much better than what Turbo can. So let's hide this. Let's remove that. Oh yeah, I like this virtual machine action description. Okay, so now we've got like enough data here where over time I can sort of see what I took an action on and what the reason was, VMem congestion, something like that. So I could do like a stacked column. So that's going to change the visualization, and then I can mess around with what gets plotted on the x-axis, the y-axis. I'll go over here, and I can say, yeah, on the x-axis, let me kill some of these things. We want to see the daily, we want to see this over time. We want to see the number of actions that were taken, and we want to slice it up by maybe the thing, the virtual machine, and then the action description. I think it was like memory, resized because of memory congestion. And then poof, and let's see what we got. And this is now grabbing all the data since I guess we turned this on October 26th. So there we go. So show me all the virtual machine VMem congestion actions in the environment. Oh, there they got two different names, slightly different text, but there we go. So got everything. Anyways, really easy. Made that quickly. Didn't have to know SQL. Like under the covers, what was created was this. Oh,
Yeah,
don't need
the
to
other
know
way
that
looks
anymore.
easier. Yeah, the other way looks easier. Let's just stick with
Yeah, yeah.
this looks way worse.
Exactly.
Don't pay attention
Yeah.
to that in the current.
Yeah, exactly. I like what I've created. I can then pin that to, I can save it, and then I can pin it to a dashboard that I've created, and then that's what I was showing you before, where I got a bunch of different reports.
What about sharing this, right? Like you said, like businesses with the reports, we report this way. We want to send these out on, X date or, every
Yeah.
third month or whatever. Are we able to do that here?
Yeah, let me go to, you can do it with, I haven't saved this, and I don't really care to save it because it's just something quickly we created. But if I go to one of these dashboards as an example, but you can also do it on an individual report, hit save, and I can do schedule. And this is where I can say, please email this to me, every work day at 9 in the morning, and I want you to send it to these people.
Pretty easy.
Boom.
And those
Easy.
people don't necessarily have to be users in Turbo or have access to Turbo. Doesn't matter, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. And each of these panels, you can also say, well, I just want this graphic. I want the visual of it, which is just the PNG. Or can you send this to me as an Excel? It'll convert this to sort of raw data. And then you've got an CSV or an Excel file you can mess around with and manipulate. So lots of cool options here.
Pretty handy
Give
dandy.
me the data.
I like
Yeah.
it. And you said right now this is essentially for SaaS customers, but this will go GA for everyone, I'm sure, pretty soon.
I think it's very soon. It's imminent. By the time this video goes up, I'm sure it'll be available for everyone. But
You heard it here first, folks. Anson says it's coming out tomorrow. He's staking his entire career on it, and that's it.
That's also the pre-sales guy in me. Yes, promising these
You've
features.
been there, right? Dealing with the things that the pre-sales folks have to say, right?
Of course, of course. Well,
Oh,
Anson told me.
yeah. Yeah, you could. We can definitely do this. Post sales will help you get this done for sure. Yeah.
And we will. We can.
Just got to, talk to your expert lab seller. I mean, we have a fantastic group of services folks here at Turbo that are definitely happy to help you with this kind of stuff.
That's right.
For
People
sure.
who aren't. Anson, this is all very, very interesting stuff. The demo you've given, first of all, this is the first I've seen this new ThoughtSpot solution, so I appreciate that. And this is slick. And the demo you gave us, the TechZone instance, you talked a lot about TechZone. You gave us a pretty good feel for what it is, what we're doing there, what the benefits that they're getting from it are. I can't help but feel like you sort of glossed over the Office of the CIO stuff. You're like, oh yeah, we did that, but this TechZone thing is really cool. Like maybe you could explain just a touch and give us like a little bit of flavor of what is the Office of the CIO, number one. I keep hearing that. I don't know what it is, and I work at IBM. And what are we doing in that environment? Or who are the stakeholders we've got there, and what are the business outcomes they were looking for, and what have we delivered?
Great question.
And I speak more about TechZone because I'm closer to that environment. A lot of credit for Office of the CIO goes to Stephen Wagner, as well as Jason Shaw, for keeping that rolling. Yes.
He's a persona that we captured.
And our implementation there, so Office of the CIO, and I might butcher this, but effectively a lot of the core internal systems that we all rely on and use, W3, for example, would be one of them. These are the platforms that IBMers rely on to run our business, are being hosted and managed by the Office of the CIO. A lot of them are implemented on various Kubernetes, OpenShift platforms in those environments. And so for us today, it's a big implementation managing Kubernetes actions, automating pod movements. Boom, those are on. Fantastic. What this team moved very quickly on, which was really cool to see, was right sizing of containers as well. So we are automating the scaling up and scaling down of their requests and limits for memory and vCPU, which is really cool to see. Early on, as I understand it, there was this hesitancy to be like, well, for those that don't know, like Turbo is going to change your running deployment to be a different size when it makes these changes. Office of the CIO defines a lot of their configuration in a source of truth somewhere. And so there was this initial hesitancy, well, do we need Turbo to talk back to our source of truth, and then our pipeline pushes out these changes instead of just Turbo making these changes and having our pipeline undo it. And interestingly enough, based on how frequently they push out their pipeline, they were like, you know what, let's just have Turbo make these changes. And sure, our pipeline might undo them a week from now whenever we push out our changes, but Turbo will just take an action again. And effectively, it's effectively non-disruptive for a lot of their end users when they take these resize actions on their platform. So it's pretty cool to see. Again, they leaned in hard to Turbo and said, yeah, we want to take actions. We can afford right-sizing an instance does technically disrupt it. Something goes down, the new container goes up. But for the amount of disruption that it was causing was negligible. So they're willing to take actions up and down throughout the day in this container environment. And I think if you go to the site where we've published, if you Office of the CIO, IBM Turbonomic, you'll get the case study. Some thousands of requests and limits have been reclaimed in the environment. So again, giving them some extra capacity to work with. Yep. You always see the headline is like the capacity that people got back. Of course, they only take those downsize actions knowing that Turbo's there to give them back when needed. And I also sound like a broken record, but it's just always worth repeating. It's all about the performance. People are scared to take stuff away because they're worried they'll break something. So it's not like you've got a capacity problem. You've got a performance problem, a risk problem.
Right. And moreover, a people problem. And not to say that people are bad, but like human nature is such, right, that like it's the fear that you're really overcoming, right? We have the technology to fix a lot of these technology problems. Yeah. That's not really what we're always fighting. It's really, yes, telling the story of performance, telling the story of being efficient and compliant, but really also convincing people that we're going to do right by you and your team. And the entire organization, right? It's a crawl, walk, run, right? Probably the most overused phrase ever, but it's true.
It's true, and Yeah, we come up with organizations who are like, no, I get it. I get Turbo. You sound great. I love it. But I've been burned enough times trying to go to my end users and take recommendations or my recommendations that I've come up with just looking at my environment and how are you any different? And so like we can't solve all people problems, but we do know that trust is important. And yes, if you go in there with the wrong actions and you are able to convince somebody to take something, but it breaks, something breaks, you have lost so much trust that it's going to be almost impossible to go back in there again and ask to take an action. So, our angle has always been, because of our, the metrics we're looking at from a performance standpoint, the way our analytics work, our percentile analytics, our knowledge of this full stack, that we're going to give you a really compelling reason to take actions, and you'd be silly not to, based on how trustworthy they are. That's to at least help push the people problem along, because it's very real. And whether we give you a good action or a wrong action, if someone's not able, Turbo gives you right actions, but whether it's a right action from Turbo or a wrong action from someone else, if you can't convince anyone to do it, then neither of them matter.
Yeah, that's it's a solid point. And again, it's like, we had these same, you kind of described, there was always hesitation, even internally at IBM, right? These are still things that you and the team still had to work with our own people to overcome. So it's completely natural and normal. And I think, luckily we have like an excellent team of pre-sales, post-sales folks that are there to kind of like help the customers, like kind of work through it and handhold, if you will, but kind of walk through the process, this journey, right? The journey that we call it. And it's neat to see. And again, like, the examples that you shared, TechZone and the Office of the CIO, it just, again, like, this isn't a sales job where we're saying this is good for you, but we're not going to use it, right? I mean, we're using it, right? And again, I think Office of the CIO might be the largest deployment of OpenShift anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, it's massive. So it doesn't get much more complex than that, at least from a Kubernetes perspective. They trust us to do it. So I think that speaks volumes to sort of the belief that I know all of us on this episode have, but beyond that, right? Everyone at IBM as well. I mean, it's the truth.
Yes, it's really funny to see how this is. It makes sense that this is where we are now, but it's funny to think 11 years ago when I came to Turbo, and we would do proof of values. We get people to install. Our demos mainly consisted of showing people the recommendations and saying, "Yeah, pretty good, right? Like, want to buy?" And we at no point were we like saying you should take the action, which was it's fun. It's like I'm laughing about it now because it's so silly. And then, like, I don't know, maybe after 6 months, a year even, I remember jumping on a phone call where you jump onto the call for the first time, and everything was green. And I was like, oh gosh, this hardly ever happens. Like, I've got no actions to show them. Like, and I'm saying like, well, gosh, I've never seen this before. You guys must be doing an incredible job running your environment. And he's like, oh no, like a couple hours before the call, I just logged in and I took all the actions that Turbo was recommending. And I was like, you did what? And for whatever reason, because I just hadn't crossed the line at this point, that shocked me. But when it was a great moment, because I was like, well, yeah, of course you should take the actions. Like, this is what we've been, this is what we've hoped people have done, but we never pushed people on. And it was after that, it's like 9 years ago, that was when we were like, oh man, in these proof of values, we really should be encouraging our customers to take these actions, because we call it a proof of value for a reason. It's not a proof of concept. The concept works. These actions are going to pop up. You're only going to see value if you take the actions. And so that was the aha moment for us, like a customer taking the action, being like, well, yeah, you said that to take them, so Turbo said to take them, so I took them. And we're like, oh yeah, of course.
Obvious.
I've been here before. Of course. Yeah. So.
Of course. Yeah. I to this day, until right this second, and I'm going to admit this, I didn't know why we called it a POV as opposed to a POC.
Right.
I've always used them interchangeably, and I was like, I don't know, maybe we just like to call it POV. Everyone else called it POC. I don't know. But you just explained it perfectly, and I'm going to steal that because people ask me that question, and I'm like, it's a good question. And then I just say, oh, looks something shiny, and then I just move on.
C and V are right next to each other on the
Right,
keyboard,
yes.
and sometimes
That's in
people
your
press
head.
the wrong one. Yeah.
Anson, appreciate the time today and chat with us. This has been a great conversation. I learned a bunch of stuff today, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Greg and I have a thing that we ask. We like to put people on the spot. We didn't prep you for this. So again, this, by the way, this was Greg's idea, not mine. I
Yeah.
said it's a bad idea. Greg insisted.
Yeah.
Uh,
I like the awkward moments.
yeah,
Feed on them.
absolutely. So don't feel pressure to answer, but looking ahead and obviously with all the features being added to Turbo, is there anything sort of that you're most excited about or most looking forward to in the next, I don't know, 6 months, a year, whatever?
Yeah, maybe two overall things, movements. One, our shift to SaaS as a company and platform has, I think, just tremendous benefits for customers. Certainly for us, if you're a long time Turbo user or listener, we've traditionally deployed into OVA environments and Kubernetes environments, and just like with any system you've got to deploy into your environment, that requires some amount of maintenance to keep running and up to date. And it's just been nice to see the shift to our SaaS platform that more and more customers are using. And with that, we of course just keeping on with the theme, like when we're running our SaaS environments, we've got Turbo managing them in real time, making sure that our customer environments are always healthy. So our shift to SaaS has been exciting. I think that should be a much better user experience for all of our customers as they move to those platforms. The other has been the amount of development work that we've put into our Kubernetes support. It just seems to, cloud and Kubernetes just seems to be the future for us. We know VMware. That is our bread and butter. We used to be VM Turbo way back in the day, but as we see more and more customers using cloud and Kubernetes, we just see this huge opportunity to be the control platform in those environments. The little line we like to use internally, Kubernetes, we love it. It's self-healing, but that is not self-optimizing.
Right.
So,
Eva has taught you well, Anson, there.
yes. We need to get Eva, the 5-part Eva series on this. That is some good knowledge that will rub off. Yeah. So I'm most excited about those things because there's just I think a huge opportunity in the Kubernetes space. It's still so new. It feels like a lot of people scratching their heads as they start to scale out in those environments and need help. And we're there to help. Non-disruptive actions, disruptive actions, doesn't really matter. Modifying pipelines and sources of truth, we support it all. So it's exciting.
Pretty excellent. Yeah. Well, great. Well, again, Anson, thank you for your time, and for everyone watching, obviously, for more great information on all things Turbo, check out our IBM community page. And as far as this video, you already know, you got to like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Leave a comment. Tell your friends.
Click the button.
Click the
button. Click the
there.
button.
Yeah. Click that button. But no, again, appreciate the time, Anson, and again, thank you everyone for watching, and we look forward to the next one. We'll catch you then. Bye,
Thank
guys.
you, Joe. Thank you, Greg.